Psalm 116 verses 14 to 16. We are precious in the sight of the Lord. Verse 14 reads, I will pay my vows to the Lord now in the presence of all his people. Because the psalmist has already covenanted to devote himself to God's worship, he now begins the commencement of fulfillment in the presence of God, his Lord, through his vows. Conscientious of his witness to those in the public who would test his faith and word, the psalmist makes his vow to the people who would be witnessing his presentation rather than simply listen to an empty promise. Psalm 116:15, Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. Therefore, the Lord delivered the psalmist from the pits of Sheol as he who felt the ropes of death tugging at him. Back in verse 3 where he lamented, the ropes of death were wrapped around me, and the torments of Sheol overcame me, I encountered trouble and sorrow. Rather, our God delivered his soul from the angel of death. Those saints who are redeemed with costly blood are so dear to God that even their deaths are precious to him. Psalm 116:16, O Lord, truly I am your servant, the son of your maidservant, you have loosed my bonds. The psalmist expresses the special blessing of his deliverance from death as the Lord loosened his bonds in Jubilee, and therefore re-establishes his relationship to his Lord as a bondservant, following the example of his mother. Refusing to go out a free man, he chooses to have his ear bored, changing his status from a slave to a bondservant where he would continue by free choice in the house of the Lord forever. He alludes here to the law of the bondslave who, in the year of Jubilee was entitled to his liberty, yet when the time of freedom came, the servant expresses his gratitude and so loved the master that he would refuse to leave his master's house. The bored ear served as proof that by his own volition he agreed to continue in his master's house as a servant forever. If we are truly in Christ, then by choice we have become his bondservants. He has broken the bonds of sin and bound us with the cords of reconciliation. He has delivered us from the tyranny of Satan, and by imputation made us slaves to righteousness.